have never been this conflicted about a game in my life. Pokémon Legends ZA has left me with a lot of thoughts. But first, I have to say thank you to Pokémon Company International and Nintendo of America for sending me the code. That was epic, I appreciate it. But that doesn't mean I'm going to change my opinion on how I feel about the game. I'm not going to take it easy on them. Trust me, you'll see. Pokemon's got me all choked up. Because this game is broken. It's true. Well, at least parts of it are. I truly can't believe the state of this game in some areas. There's bland textures and horrible filler content haunting nearly every corner. But before we get into that, I think it's important to explain where I'm coming from with this review. I've been a Pokemon fan for quite a while, but not in the same way most people are. I never really got into the mainline RPGs growing up. I tried and tried. Trust me. But they never clicked with me. The turn-based gameplay always felt like a slog, even though the core of Pokemon, building your team, training them, and that pure dopamine hit of catching something rare was still really fun for me. Then Pokemon Legends Arceus came along, and everything changed. Finally, a game that cut the slow pacing and let you explore a semi-open world, sneaking up on Pokemon and catching them in real time in the wild. This was my dream game. Yes, it had flaws, but it was the first time Game Freak really shook up the formula, and I loved it for that as well. So when Pokémon Legends ZA was announced, I thought it would have built on what Arceus started. But instead, this game actually feels like it's kind of in a little bit of a different direction. The game starts with you entering Lumio City. This is where the entire game takes place. Here, Pokemon live alongside humans. It's perfect. Or is it? First things first, let's talk about the story. And don't worry, no spoilers here. I won't get into what it's actually about, but overall, it's pretty solid. I've got to give the writing some credit. It feels a little less geared towards kids this time around. Don't get me wrong, it still is a Pokemon game and has its goofy moments, but overall, it's a lot more digestible from a story perspective, which I really appreciate as an adult. I might not seem like an adult, but I am. Most of the characters are solid too, and nobody really stood out to me as someone I hated, unlike some other Pokemon games. You know who I'm talking about. Where the story gets annoying doesn't even have to do with the plot itself, it's all the filler. There were so many points where I was just spamming the A button to get through dialogue because it just felt so unnecessary. And it's not just this game. I feel like every Pokemon game does this to a certain degree. They get a bunch of characters who just yap on, regurgitating the same information over and over again. It's not that the content is bad, it's just long. You can't skip through fast, you have to wait for each text box to crawl across the screen, and yes, I might seem impatient, but it really does add up. I feel like even patient players would get frustrated with this one. It doesn't help that in classic Pokemon fashion, the character models are just stiffly standing around, barely moving. It just feels cheap and rushed. Now, something that would have made this way better, I'm gonna say it, voice acting. It really would have. Now, I can't act like I'm shocked, because Pokemon games have never had proper voice acting, except for that one.
Hey, I'm not playing at all. My hat keeps moving on its own.
But seriously, adding voices would have made these scenes way more engaging. And honestly, I'm here to play games, not read a book. What makes it even crazier is that some of these cutscenes are really high quality for a Pokemon game. The camera work, the sound effects, the music, it's all great. And the lips on the characters are already moving. Like, come on! Tell me these scenes wouldn't have been better with actual voice lines. Here, let me show you the difference with it being voice acted and with it not being voice acted.
Look, I'm trying to get our hotel guests to safety. Would you please let us through? Too bad for your guests. Once you step into the battle zone, you are a target like everyone else.
I'm a voice actor now. But those are my few gripes with the overall cutscene and some of the filler throughout the story. It's not bad, it's actually pretty good for a Pokemon game. Let's talk about the real core of the game, the gameplay. And there are a few things to talk about here, such as the catching, the battling. And actually that's about it. Those are the two things I need to talk about. Catching in this game feels very different from traditional titles, especially the turn-based ones, and you already know how I feel about those. I don't love them. But in Pokemon Legends Arceus, catching Pokemon was perfect. The Pokeballs had a right speed, weight, and physics. It was so satisfying to throw one and land a capture. It actually felt really good. With Pokemon Legends ZA though, something feels a little bit off. Catching feels a little stiffer than before. The throws don't go as far, and the curve just isn't as smooth. In Arceus, it felt like I was pitching a ball with some power behind it. Here, it's like I'm casually tossing it like a game of catch. Even with the basic Pokeball, they just don't travel as far. And for me, it makes catching feel less exciting overall. Now, I still like the core idea, being able to catch without battling, and the catch chance changing depending on which way the Pokemon is facing, that's all great. But in this game, catching feels less like a focus, and removing little mechanics like luring Pokemon with food was such a missed opportunity. I use that all the time in Arceus, and it made catching way more dynamic and made these Pokemon feel like actual animals you were trying to hunt. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still satisfying to catch Pokemon in this game. Definitely the second best game to do it, behind Arceus. But it doesn't feel as rewarding, and I think that has to do a lot with where you're catching them, the wild zones. These are small areas around Lumio City sectioned off for Pokemon to live. This is where you go to kidnap them. On the map, you can see which Pokemon live in each zone, and when you catch all the designated Pokemon, you've officially completed that zone. This is a big shift from games like Scarlet and Violet or Arceus, where Pokemon just roam freely in the open world. In ZA, it feels like they added these wild zones to justify variety. Snowy areas, water areas, ghost areas, since you're limited to a single city. It's understandable, but also feels a touch forced. The zones themselves just don't feel the same. Sure, it's still fun to catch wild Pokemon and run from giant ones trying to absolutely obliterate you, but it lacks the natural flow that Arceus had. Most of the zones are tiny, and instead of stumbling across rare Pokemon by chance, it feels more like a checklist you have to go to. You know, you go to a wild zone, you check off all the Pokemon, and you're done. You still can find a few Pokemon scattered throughout Lumio City, but the wild zones are where you'll do most of your catching. And they're definitely a step down from the open world freedom like the last Legends game. Still, I don't think they ruin the experience entirely. It makes sense for a city setting. It's just, it's not magical. Overall, catching in Pokemon Legends ZA is still fun, like I said. It still has its charm. They just kind of tweaked it in the wrong way, I feel like, in this game. Anyway, so let's move on to the battling, because that's the other half of the game. This is where the game absolutely nails it. Battling feels like the main focus here, and it's the part they fine-tuned the most. This was always my biggest gripe with older mainline Pokemon games, the slow turn-based combat. But here, it's fast, it's fluid, it's fun. They started improving this with Legends Arceus, making it feel a bit faster while still keeping that turn-based foundation. But in Legends ZA, that's mostly gone. You attack, wait for your move to recharge, and then boom, you can just use it again. It's kind of like Xenoblade if you played that, and for me, this is the best direction they could have gone. It's the most control in battle you've ever had in a Pokemon game, aside from, you know, Pokken Tournament or something. Battles actually feel like Pokemon are fighting now. The pacing's quicker, the impact feels real, and I love how the environment plays a part in it too. Like if my Pokemon hides behind a tree and the opponent attacks, that tree can block the hit. I love trees. Call me the Lorax! You can also dodge attacks manually or sidestep lingering moves on the battlefield! It makes everything feel more alive, and battling is also tied to your progression now. The game has a day and night cycle. During the day, you're catching Pokemon and doing side quests, but at night, you're battling trainers to rank up. It's a great gameplay loop, and it's one of my favorite parts. I love jumping between day and night. I felt like I always had something to do. As you battle other trainers, you'll also collect these tickets. Each one has a specific challenge. Land a super effective move, or sneak up on an opponent. Completing them gives you extra points and money you can spend on items, Pokeballs, or even outfits. These tickets are such a smart idea because instead of just mindlessly battling everyone, they give you goals that actually change how you play and who you fight. Then there are the boss battles, or the big Mega Evolution battles, which are easily some of the highlights of the story. I don't want to show a lot of them because I'm afraid that people might view those as spoilers. I'll just show the first 2 or 3, but there's a lot of them, and they're chaotic and fun. Balancing your Pokemon's health and your own character survival at the same time is surprisingly intense, and this is where Mega Evolutions come in. Oh yeah, and by far these big boss battles, they are absolutely the most flashy and visually stimulating this game is. Like, these actually look pretty good. I'll get into a lot of the graphic issues later, but I mean, this actually looks like a current gen Pokemon game, especially on the Switch 2. Like, look at that. This is just insane. Now, I do have to talk about the controls because for me, they felt a little tiny bit broken at times. For example, you can't use items while locked onto a Pokemon, which I guess makes sense since the same buttons are used for menu controls, but still, it's confusing. For a while, I actually thought you couldn't use items mid-battle at all. Turns out you can. I just didn't know that. I saw that on a video online somewhere. You also can't dodge while you're locked onto a Pokemon, which is really weird because again, the dodge button is Y, and in battle, the Y button is a Pokemon attack. So if I'm attacking a Pokemon and the Pokemon tries to attack me, I have to unlock the control first and then dodge. I feel like there's probably a better way they could have done this, or a different button they could have used so that I could dodge while locking on. I guess it's not that big of a deal in the grand scope of things. Whatever. It's weird. Speaking of controls, I have a couple gripes with it, and I don't even know if this has to do with the controls, but I'm gonna start speaking. Why in the world can't you throw your Pokemon straight into battle anymore? Or at all, really. Here, you have to press up on the D-pad to select your Pokemon to throw it out before attacking. It completely kills the flow, and really the whole point of sneaking. Like, how is the enemy trainer not noticing a giant Pokemon running full sprint at them? I just don't understand why they remove the ability to throw your Pokemon from their ball. But it doesn't stop there. All around Lumio City are breakable objects like rocks, wood, and these glowing Mega Shard crystals that you need to collect. But once again, you can't just throw your Pokemon at them to break or harvest them. You have to manually send out your Pokemon with up on the D-pad, wait for them to perform the attack, and you stop moving entirely while it happens. And you can only command one Pokemon at a time to do this. In Arceus, you could throw multiple Pokemon at multiple resources and keep walking while they collected everything in the background. It was so seamless. Here, it's clunky. Sometimes I'd even send out the wrong move and the attack wouldn't break the crystal, so I had to do it all again and I had to wait. But overall, the battling in Pokémon Legends ZA is easily the strongest part of the game. It's fast, fun, and cinematic. But when it comes to the controls and resource interaction, it definitely takes a few steps backwards compared to Arceus, but overall the battling is just, it's great. Now for the moment we've all been waiting for, the performance and graphics. Hold on to your seats, ladies and gentlemen, this is about to get crazy. This is, without a doubt, the best a Pokemon game has ever looked. Well, aside from new Pokemon Snap. And yeah, when you compare it to previous Pokemon titles, it looks really good. But here's the problem. It looks awful. Hear me out. It looks good for a Pokemon game, but bad for a current gen, first-party Nintendo game. And I'm just tired of saying that. Now, I have to keep reminding myself that this is still technically a Switch 1 game. It was designed for older hardware, so I try not to be too critical, but even then, some of this stuff just makes zero sense. Even if they were working with a Switch 1 version, they could have at least done something to make it look better on the Switch 2. Maybe adding reflections on glass buildings, improving flat textures, or throwing some extra foliage or something like that. Instead, this is definitely just copy and pasted from the Switch 1 version, and they just upscaled it and made it run at 60 frames per second. Now, I will give it credit, this is running at 4K 60 frames per second locked, with no frame dips or any major issues, and for what it is, it does look substantially better on Switch 2. But ironically, the sharpness almost makes the flaws more noticeable. The flatter textures look even flatter, and the missing details stand out just a little bit more. Character models look stiff and lifeless, and cars in the city don't even move. Like, all of that just makes Lumio City feel barren and dead. Now, let's take a look at New Donk City from Mario Odyssey. That place was full of movement, cars, people, reflections, detail, and that was all on the original Switch. And that was one tiny slice of the game. Meanwhile, in Legends ZA, this city is the entire game. There's nowhere else you go but the city, which just makes the lack of attention to detail and stuff like that even crazier. I think I could forgive it more if Lumio City was just one of several big areas, but it's not. It's the main location. Sure, the wild zones in certain parts of the city have more visual flavor, but overall, it's not huge. When I played through the story, I really didn't get bored, but I can already tell that once I start grinding that Pokedex, I feel like this is going to start feeling samey really fast. At this point, I think it's fair to say that Game Freak just isn't keeping up with modern graphical standards. This is the biggest IP in the world. Pokemon could easily get more resources and external help if they wanted to. So I really don't know why visuals still feel like they're stuck in 2014. Maybe it's budget limits. You know what? I'll give them this. The game is functioning. And I'm thankful we didn't get another buggy, glitchy mess. Can you imagine releasing a game that was unfinished? Who would do such a thing? I just wish that we'd finally get a Pokemon game that looks next gen. Something that really blows me away visually. Because here's the thing. Yes, there's a lot wrong with Legends ZA, but there's also a lot that they've done right. People say Game Freak doesn't care, and while I understand that take, I don't fully agree. They are trying. The catching system, even if it's not as good as Arceus, is still fun. The new battling system is dynamic and genuinely great. And they're clearly experimenting and trying to evolve the overall formula of Pokemon in general. But man, if they could just get those graphics right, I feel like so many more people would have just accepted it and loved it for what it is. I really do think the biggest backlash of this entire game is that this just feels unfinished. It feels unpolished, which is clear. It is unpolished. We've seen first-party Nintendo games with much more polish, and it just looks so much better than this. So it's crazy that the biggest franchise is not putting the care that really us Pokemon fans deserve at this point, especially at the price. Now let's talk about that price, because oh boy. As we all know, the game costs $70 on the Nintendo Switch 2. How dare they? $70? Oh. Hello? Oh, it's $60 on the Switch 1. $60 on the Switch 1 and $70 on the Switch 2. Okay, that's been the standard price for most Switch 1 games, and there's just as much effort here as in other $60 titles that didn't catch nearly this much flack. I'm actually surprised they didn't pull a, making the Switch 1 version $70 and the Switch 2 version $80. I totally expected that, especially after Mario Galaxy 1 plus 2. So for people freaking out about this game being $70 on Switch 2, that's the standard Switch 2 game price. I don't know what to tell you. There's not ever going to be a Switch 2 game that's not $70, especially a first-party one from Nintendo and from a franchise as big as Pokemon. I actually don't find that to be difficult to swallow. Hold on, I got another phone call. They announced paid DLC before the game even launched? And you can buy it right now? How dare Nintendo! Actually, I have some thoughts. Nintendo has announced paid DLC before games launched several times. Here are just a few that have done this. And nobody has cared nearly as much as they do with Pokemon. Now, yes, it does look bad when there's DLC available before release. Some people are calling it cut content and saying Pokemon is charging extra for what should have already been in the main game. And I see that argument. I get it. But I also think this DLC looks like it's going to be something substantial. $30 is a lot, so it better be good. And based on how Pokemon has handled DLC in the past, it probably will be. It's kind of lame that your Pokedex won't be complete without it, and I do think that $30 is a bit steep, but until we actually see what it includes, and for everyone freaking out about how they announced it early, maybe do a little research first, because this isn't a new thing video games do. It's bad timing for Nintendo to just throw this out there. Like, they definitely could have waited to announce this, and I think that would have saved their reputation, but I think they were probably doing a whole business thing where they wanted people to buy the DLC during the launch of the game, instead of having to wait and then risk people not coming back. But I hope my review actually made sense and that you could see my perspective. I'm not coming at this from nostalgia. I wasn't a huge fan of the older Pokemon games growing up. I'm just a guy who likes playing video games and sharing my thoughts. An opinion is an opinion, and you can totally agree with mine, but I'd love to hear them in the comments, what you think about this game. Oh, also a quick shout out to the music. It absolutely slaps. And I just gotta say, like, there's so much negativity online about this game. I almost guarantee there's gonna be people commenting who haven't even watched this far into the video and just say that this game is not worth it, and then click off instantly. They just want to spew their opinion. There's so much negativity online about surrounding this game, when there are really a lot of good things about it. Yes, I have my few tweaks and my nitpicks, but overall, for a $60 game, I think we're getting a substantial package, and I actually really enjoyed the game for what it was. Yes, Game Freak is a little bit lazy when it comes to some parts of the game, but overall, the gameplay is a good Pokemon game. Like, it's good. I don't know what to tell you. Let's get the game gauge out. As you all know, the game gauge is my way of ranking video games. Yeah, it's pretty good, actually. I'll take it. Thanks for watching and sticking around till the end. Check out my second channel for my first impressions and plenty more videos, unscripted and unfiltered. Thanks to all the members for supporting the channel. You all are epic. Consider liking and subscribing. I hope to see you in the next one. See you later.